Well, hello! Welcome back to Toy Thursday with Johnny Tiger on June 2nd, 2022. As so often is the case, on the morning of Toy Thursday, when I first wake up, I ask my Amazon Echo device, what is special about today? Because I like to try to honor uh, the theme of the day. So if it's a day that has something to do with nurses, well, we look at something that have to do with nurses. If something is a day that to do with police officer, then we can try to fulfill that with our Toys Thursday. Today it turned out two uh, options. One, it's Dragon Boat Festival Day, which I spoke extensively about during yesterday's Wisdom Wednesday. Unfortunately, I actually don't have anything in my collection that can represent this day adequately. I mean, I have a lot of dragons. So I suppose I could have shown you guys a dragon action figure and called that a day. But actually, I am kind of saving my dragon collection up until we are in the year of the dragon. Then we can unveil them because it's going to be really, really cool. So I really didn't want to spoil that. So that led us to option two. Today happens to be International I Love My Dentist Day. It is a day when you want to appreciate your dentist for putting a beautiful smile on your face. I don't know, I think most dentists are kind of sadistic, but anyway. And speaking of that, so when I finally sat down at the computer, I was looking through my uh, log of my massive action figure collection, which really is not that massive comparing to most serious collectors out there. Like almost everyone I know that collect action figures uh, seriously have way more than I do. But anyway, it's still really, really big. Like uh, my collection is hovering somewhere around 1,000 action figures at this point, which is a little bit mind-boggling when you think about it. Um, so I did a quick search through my log of my collection, and surprisingly enough, it was very difficult to find anything dentist related. We have superheroes and supervillains that were professors and doctors and uh, 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 construction workers, uh, and police officers, and uh, all kinds of other background teachers, uh, and hospital janitors, all kinds of stuff. But for some reason, we don't really have a character that is or was a dentist at one time or another. But I did dig up one character whose connection to a dentist is undeniable and quite frankly, uh, it's really disturbing and horrifying. So, with that in mind, the figure we're going to be looking at today, the character we're going to be talking about, is going to be kind of scary. So, if this kind of stuff disturbs you, then this is the time to turn off the video. I bring to you a character that is horrific, disturbing, and many people do not know, a character by the name of Judge Dredd. Born Sidney De'ath, the young Sidney started childhood as a rather disturbing kind of child. He liked to shoot birds and torture his dog, and he learned all sorts of ways of torture by watching his father, who was a traveling dentist, who was also a serial killer. Sidney's dad, the dentist, would often lure people into his van, strap them down on his dentist chair, and torture them in the most gruesome fashion, and then afterward throw their body out on the street. Sidney's world was kind of like ours, but not like ours. The world, the universe that he grew up in was called Deadworld. I mean, come on, that's like just so corny that it's cute. Yeah, like when the world you live in is called Dead World, you know nothing good is going to happen. And that is true for Sidney. Watching his dad gave him a lot of inspiration to start torturing animals himself. Eventually, one day, Sidney even killed his own dog by throwing a ball out the window and make the dog go after that ball, and of course the dog ended up falling to his death. During his school years, Sidney also murdered three of the school bullies that tormented him, and this put him on a path that was long and filled with murder. His father once told him that life itself was disgusting, and even when Sidney turned his dad in for being a serial killer and his dad was sentenced to death, Sidney was the person that flipped the switch on the electric chair that electrocuted his own father. And right before he flipped the switch, his dad smiled at him and told him, "Good job, son." After Sidney grew up, he became one of the judges and held the power of life and death in his own hand. And he would often execute not just the criminals, but even people who would uh, waste the court's time. He once executed a young couple right there in court because he said they wasted the resources of the justice system. At this point, he became more and more obsessed with death. So one day, he tracked down his now estranged sister and mother. He cornered them in an abandoned castle. At his mother's plea, Sidney said to his mom, "Don't cry. You're boring me with your cry. I'm doing this for your own good." And then he proceeded in slaughtering his mother and his sister. If you think that these were already really, really horrible, and things was about to get a lot worse. Because soon after, Sidney ran into a pair of witches that called themselves the Dark Sisters. The Dark Sisters were evil spirits that believed in causing death and destruction. And they convinced Sidney. I imagine it didn't take a lot of convincing because he was kind of messed up to begin with. They convinced Sidney to take part in a ritual with them where Sidney tried cannibalism for the first time, eating human flesh. And after that, it was an easy, tiny step to letting the Dark Sisters perform a dark ritual on him, turning him into the evil, destructive, and immortal being called Judge Death. Now clad in a decaying corpse, this evil spirit that called Judge Death go into the world with the slogan that says the crime is life and the sentence is death. And he proceeded to murder the entire world, the entire dead world. During his journey, him and the Dark Sisters also corrupted several of the other judges and turned them into dark judges, just like Judge Death. The other judges were Judge Fear, Judge Fire, and Judge Mortis and Judge Kraken. I do not have those characters, but we do have Judge Death here, so we'll focus on the journey of Judge Death. After they slaughtered the entire population of Deadworld, Judge Death was feeling dissatisfied. I mean, come on, this shouldn't be rocket science, right? When your whole goal is to murder everybody, then what are you going to do after you accomplish that goal? You got nothing left to do. So Judge Death and his other dark judges decided, okay, since we already murdered our own universe, we are going to go through to other dimensions and we are going to murder the entire universe. So Judge Death, through means unknown, got himself to a different dimension. He went through to Mega City 1, which, to those of you who know, that's the dimension where the famous superhero or super judge, Judge Dredd, uh, live. I'm not going to go into too many details about Judge Dredd and his background because that's not what this episode is about. About Judge Death. So Judge Death went into the Judge Dredd universe, Mega City 1, and started killing a lot of people there, and even took over the body of Judge Dredd's partner. And in the end, Judge Anderson, the woman whose mind Judge Dredd took over, put herself in a coma. Like she was so powerful mentally, she put herself in a coma, trapping Judge Death's spirit inside her. And the other judges, the other dark judges, and the Dark Sisters ended up having to come and rescue Judge Death from this woman's body. And after that, they, of course, went on and killed more and more people until uh, they finally got banished from Mega City 1. And then they ended up in Gotham City. They went through another dimension and end up in the same universe as Batman. So now Batman got to deal with this horde of evil, undead, spirit, zombie judges. And long story short, Batman kicked their butt and banished them from that dimension. So they went back to Mega City 1 and caused more trouble for Judge Dredd. Finally, through a lot of effort, Judge Dredd and the other judges in Mega City 1 was able to destroy all the dark judges except the Judge Death, who escaped and came back later. This time, rather than murdering people one at a time, Judge Death decided that it would make things a lot faster if he just used nuclear weapon. That was a bit of an unintentional blooper. Judge Death fell off the counter like that. But it's actually quite prophetic because we are coming to the end of Judge Death's reign of terror. So as I was saying, Judge Death decided by this point that murdering people one at a time, even though it's a lot of fun, is too slow. So he decided to wipe out Mega City 1 and the universe by going after a bunch of nuclear weapons. His first target was Las Vegas. He used a storage house, a warehouse of nuclear weapons, and wiped out Las Vegas. And this was when something kind of unintentional and rather hilarious happened. Just as Judge Death raised his arms in triumph and glee, one of the people that died during the nuclear blast, one of the people he just murdered, turned into an angel and proceeded to kick the holy hell out of Judge Death. And finally, the angel threw Judge Death's broken body down upon the earth and, using his holy power, ripped open a hole, a direct tunnel into hell, and a whole bunch of evil spirit people that were murdered by Judge Death in the past reached out of the earth. And yeah, if you guys have seen the movie Ghost, you kind of know what that looked like. Just a bunch of arms came out of the ground from people who were murdered by Judge Death and grabbed him and dragged his soul down, kicking and screaming to hell. And that was, for now at least, the end of Judge Death's reign of terror. Would he stay dead or would he come back later? We don't know yet, but that at least put a closure on the career of this evil being. Now let's talk about the action figure of Judge Death himself. This action figure was released by Toy Biz or Marvel Toys back in 2007 at the end of their rather successful run of producing really high-end, really cool action figures. Unfortunately, the line will soon fade into obscurity and be largely forgotten when Hasbro took over the Marvel license. But this was one of the last toys made by Toy Biz for these action figures, and it was great. This is a great action figure, and we'll take a closer look at him. Now, keep in mind, the most amazing part is, like I said, this was produced in 2007, but it can totally hang with any of the action figures produced today. Paint articulation is top notch, and the best part was back then this guy only cost $10. $10, $10 for this guy, and nowadays an action figure of the same size is going for almost $30, usually $29.99. So yeah, how times has changed. Looking like a decaying corpse with a rather unique helmet, Judge Death's helmet is uh, very unique indeed. The front of the helmet looked like the portcullis of a castle, like it has got bars that run down the front of his face, hiding his face and his forehead and eyes and all that. If you look under his helmet, if you look behind the bars, you can actually see a skeletal head hiding behind there. That's really good work. Most of the flesh is that decaying zombie green. His armor and his clothes are black with a light blue wash to give them kind of a shadow look over them to bring out the details. If you look at his mouth, you'll see the teeth are perfectly yellowed, like decaying, rotting teeth, and then the gum is kind of gray and then fading to pink. So the paint detail on this guy is really fantastic. At least that's what I have been told. The rest of his clothes is a mockery of what a judge would wear. Rather than zippers and buttons, his tunic is got these rough, like uh, kind of like stitches all over it, and he has bones and skulls adorning his knees and his elbows. His belt buckle is in the shape of a skull with wings, and his judge's badge is in the shape of a skull with fangs. On his left shoulder, there's a piece of armor that looks like it's made of just a big bundle of bones. I don't know, like when I check this out, I'm thinking, oh, barbecue ribs for dinner? Maybe? That kind of sounds like a good idea. Like that's what that reminded me of. It's like he got a rack of bones and he just got it secured to his shoulder as a shoulder armor. Rather than the eagle that we see on the judge's outfit, on his right shoulder there is a small pterodactyl or pterosaur looking creature. So again, that's just a mockery of a judge's outfit. And as I already mentioned, he's got skulls on his elbows at his knees, like elbow pads and knee pads. Because Judge Death usually inhabits a decaying corpse, the figure is very, very skinny, but extremely posable, even compared against today's action figure, and quite durable because he survived that dive off the countertop without suffering any kind of injury. By the way, that is actually true with the character. I just realized I forgot to mention the powers and uh, uh, abilities of Judge Death, the character. So we'll quickly go through them. As a spirit, Judge Death is largely immortal. Well, until that last part when he got his ass totally beat by an angel. That was totally unforeseen. Uh, but anyway, before that, until then, he was largely immortal because if you destroy his body, he would just go on and take over someone else's body and continue on his evil way. For the most part, he cannot just take over anybody's physical form. He can try to influence their mind by creating illusions and mess with their mental stability. But for Judge Death to actually take over a body, that body has to be specially prepared. Essentially, he needs someone to take a dead body and put it through some kind of chemical treatment so it's decayed and like got a consistency and the look of a beef jerky. And then he will go into that body and reanimate it. So that's why usually when you see Judge Death walking around, he look really skinny, withered, like a mummified corpse. Because that is the kind of body he needs. When he's murdering people, Judge Death preferred to use his razor sharp finger to go right into the person's chest cavity, grab their heart, and squeeze their heart until the heart burst, and the person died from that. But he can also do more creative things because he's an evil spirit, so he can actually face in or through people's body and solidify halfway and kill them that way. He can, of course, use other means like messing with people's mental stability and make them commit suicide, or he can use nuclear weapons and all kind of other means of causing death and mayhem. And of course, because he is an evil spirit inside a walking corpse, bullets and knives usually don't do anything to him. Uh, the only way to debilitate him is by serious injuries, like if you push him into a fire or if you chop off his arms and legs and stuff like that. Those kind of things will slow him down, but he does not feel any of the pain. So he is essentially a superpowered zombie. Kind of scary, really. Because of how skinny he is, this action figure is amazingly jointed and articulated. And as you can see, he can go down into a full squat, like a duck walk position, and be okay with that. Like a lot of other action figures actually can't pull off this pose. Even though the joints are there, usually their muscles are too big, and there's other limitations from their armor or their clothes that they can't go into a full squat. But this guy, squatting there, no problem whatsoever. He can also cross his arms in front of his chest, and that's another thing that a lot of other action figures, even today, cannot accomplish. Even his hands are really well articulated. His fingers can move, so he can make this clawing gesture like he's about to reach into someone's chest cavity, like he so often does. He can sort of make a fist and do that beckoning gesture with his index finger, like he's telling you, come here. He can also point with his index finger while the other fingers are tucked in. You can even get him to hold a gun, even though he personally didn't come with any accessory. Because, well, he's an evil spirit. He doesn't really need any conventional weapons, boring stuff like guns or knives. He just needs nuclear weapons. That's all. At the end of the day, Judge Death, as disturbing and horrifying as he is, makes a very interesting, totally creepy villain, and the action figure itself was really well executed, really well painted, um, and I guess we can thank Toy Biz for bringing us such a cool action figure, and that's about it. I'm trying to think of something witty to say about his uh, dentist serial killer dad contributed to us getting this really cool uh, evil character, but that just seemed like kind of wrong. But anyway, uh, this unfortunately was the only action figure in my collection that I could find that had any kind of a connection with anything to do with dentist. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you celebrate Dragon Boat Festival, um, I hope you guys have a good celebration. If you are a Dragon Boater and you're involved in this weekend's big international Dragon Boat racing, good luck. Hopefully you come home with gold medal. I will see you guys again tomorrow on Fitness Friday.